I remember the first time I saw a human, fleshy, slow, and with no claws. I assumed they were weak. We learned that quickly. Growing up in an age of transition was hard. The clans were always at war, blood versus blood, cruiser versus cruiser, mandible versus mandible. The carnage was memorialized by every seer and veteran until each war became a haunting place marked. We held ourselves as fierce warriors. The crimson we spilled among our own kind of dire threat to the galaxy. The galaxy took note. Then the council came, an intercultural consortium of advanced races. They arrived with an air of power and gravity emanating from their every move. They invited us into their fold, not with force, but with promises of peace and mutual prosperity. Such diplomacy reeked of weakness, not strength. We almost refused, but the council was cunning. They appealed to our warrior culture, offering us a chance to prove our military might by forcibly inducting more primitive worlds into their interstellar order, hammering hostile alien species into submission. Now that piqued Clan Adaga's interest. The arrangement bred competitiveness while avoiding internecine bloodshed for a time. We readily agreed. And so we became military enforcers for the council, our clan leaders taking senior advisory roles, mere ambassadorial titles. Really, we were fighters at heart, and the council kept the politics veiled from the rank-and-file warriors. Our purpose was straightforward. I dominate through the implied threat of violence, while claiming fresh glory and honor for our respective clans. Simple work for a simple people. It was an intoxicating way to attract mates as well. For time, outright clan warfare faded as we developed crude systems of factional hierarchy and conflict resolution. Mate challenges persisted as personal matters, but wider clan conflagrations became rarities. Our alien allies opened our eyes to so much: art, philosophy, agriculture, medicine. We grew not just as clans, but as a species. Earning shipmaster status was my proudest achievement in that era of transition. It was also how I first encountered humanity, our blood brothers. Initial contact was faint. We prowled the outer reaches, a cold patrol seeking civilizations that had violently buffed the council's outreach. Out here on the fringe, encountering belligerent Krega or savage Shunagi was expected, but something else was leaving signs of intelligent presence. Faint ionic trails where none should exist, garbled transmissions leaking through subspace static, shadows and energy signatures imprinted on the dusty edges of the Oort clouds. We knew something was out there, watching and being watched in turn. Then, near an isolated green-shaded moon, we found them. Looking back, their ships seemed almost comically small compared to what came later. My warrior crew bayed for blood, their aggression stoked by the unknown. I'll admit, in that moment, even my own mandibles hungered for the kill. But I'd earned shipmaster through judicious decision-making, not mere ferocity. Rash action could jeopardize our mission, and any chance of making this strange newcomer an ally. We're making a mistake. This craft was like nothing we had ever encountered before. No racial identifiers, no brazen kill markings, no obvious weaponry or shielding. Its power signature defied analysis by my crew's technicians. And most puzzling of all, its trajectory made no logical sense, unless one acknowledged the chilling possibility that it had arrived from the black. The very idea struck me like an electric jolt of liquid nitrogen through my circulatory system. No species, not even the notoriously underhanded Kryaga, willingly ventured into the black. That universe-spanning ocean of cosmic detritus, where only those irredeemably lost or exiled ever sailed. Yet the simple, inexplicable truth was unavoidable. This small, innocuous ship had emerged from the eternal night between galaxies. I ordered my warriors to stand down and broadcast the coordinates for the nearest outpost on all council frequencies. To their credit, my crew complied without outward protest, though more than a few concealed their derision poorly. They thought their commander had gone soft, compromising our might before potential prey. Inwardly, I remained uncertain, but the mystery compelled me to make peaceful overtures for now. Contact protocols were stringently observed, but it soon became apparent that the humans, as they called themselves, did not share the innate telepathy that unified most council races. They would need teachers, or better or worse, that sacred role would fall to us. And so we endeavored to impart the basics of energy sail warfare, ion stream navigation, and other civilized modes of starfaring exchange. The humans granted us glimpses of their own uniquely esoteric technologies. Radar tracking, cryogenic suspension, the exotic metallurgy behind their ship's skin. Of course, their most startling capability was darker and more profound. The humans had mastered the black. Where other species could barely skirt its eldritch peripheries for short jumps, the humans had somehow found the path to its deepest, most lightless depths, and returned unscathed. They traversed the starry chains as convict pilgrims or exiles, sacrificing themselves to the utter void for incomprehensible lengths of subjective time, only to be reborn on the other side of the cosmos. We could scarcely fathom a drive that could endure such self-imposed purgatory. Most who attempted it went utterly mad or simply ceased to exist. Not the humans. The black was their domain. Just as we had pledged to help them assimilate our ways, they reciprocated by sharing the keys to their haunted road between galaxies. But such eldritch knowledge proved too much for most of us. My own hardened crew soon grew dissatisfied, distracted by the cold indifference of the void and the aching absence of sustaining starlight. They longed for the comforting thrum of ion sails and solar winds caressing their hulls. Ultimately, we acquiesced that the black would remain the private realm of our newfound blood brothers. As the knowledge transfer continued over cycles, so too did our fascination with the study of these exotic neophytes. At first glance, the humans seemed infinitely strange to our warrior eyes. They lacked the proud carapaces, quillmane ridges, and venomous trillions of barbed dentition that signified status and lethality among our kind. How did they determine hierarchies or claim dominance over kin? Their forms offered no obvious signs of physical superiority or threat. What's more, these alien beings displayed a maddening sort of anti-lightness. They were remarkably graceless on planetary surfaces. Born in Nulgi, they seemed to trip and stumble with every gravity-shackled step on the rare occasions we hosted them, yet they somehow derived amusements from these clumsy ground fallings, hooting and hollering like nestlings at play. An infinitely baffling species. But oh, how their minds enthralled us. Humanity's ability to focus on complex philosophical and computational problems was utterly captivating. We witnessed them dismantling and reintegrating our most advanced technologies, isolating conceptual flaws and devising iterative corrections with a sort of innate, preternatural calculus. Where we drew upon cortical archives of ancestral knowledge, they built revelations from pure, first-principle reasoning. It was simultaneously humbling and deeply alluring to watch them dance through theoretical thickets of thermodynamics, field dynamics, and xenomaterials with such fluidity and brash confidence. And the boldness of their experiments, whether sailing unshielded through plasma fields or constructing sprawling industrial hive minds that consumed entire moons, the humans sought knowledge and advancement with unbound zeal and ambition unmatched throughout the stellar neighborhood. And when depleted by their constant drive, they would enter brave-like trances for mere fractions of a cycle before awakening, reinvigorated and ready to push the boundaries once more. Our new blood brothers were magnificent, and every bit as endlessly inquisitive toward us as we were of them. Alas, such pioneer symbiosis could not endure indefinitely. War inevitably came, as it always did. Expansion-mad Kraga overstepped their bounds, overrunning and defiling life, giving refuge moons belonging to non-council species. We responded in force, only to be beaten back with sickening ease. The Kraga showed their barbaric hand by disrespecting all tenets of civilized conduct. They slipped through our defensive blockades and unleashed hell itself across the inner colonies. Death, destruction, defilement beyond words. When the council refused intervention, our pride would not let such blasphemy stand. We defied orders, determined to chastise the Kraga abominations. But the most grievous outrage had yet to transpire. Not content with their soulless marauding, those sadistic vermin decided to single out and violate our newfound wards. Kraga behemoth claws seized the human outpost ship, impaling every last one of the helpless scientists aboard and mounting their trophy corpses on bristling sheaves of horn spines. We were transmitted visuals of Kraga monstrosities, tearing soft human bodies asunder, cackling as they fed on flesh and bone while survivors screamed in infinite agony. Nightmares that yet scald my dream sleep, consumed by unbridled fury. I led a saturation barrage against these desecrated wretches, annihilating every spore and spawn loth until a permanent aura of radiation shrouded that wretched moon. But so many human souls had already been fed into the Kraga's ravenous mogulate. far too many to simply mourn or avenge with a clinical strike. We grew desperate, vowing to defy the rest of the council if need be to liberate our imperiled wards. Only under threat of system-shattering escalation did the council finally relent, permitting a rescue mission on the condition that security details were tripled and territorial overwatch maximized to prevent any further incursions. With those concessions made, top gunners and decorated warlords throughout our sphere mobilized en masse for retrieval. We streaked towards that forsaken area, vaporizing every Krega and its vile spawn on sight, intent on wresting free any human survivor. Nothing could have prepared us for the horror found upon the shattered derelict. For death, verily. But not as I'd envisioned it. Compartments choked with biofilth and viscera, to be sure, cranial ichor plastering the bulk passages, dismembered human forms aplenty, streaming like sacrificial effigies. Yet, amid that same repulsive carnage, the survivors endured. They did not merely persist. They toiled and augmented and maneuvered with a singular determination that eclipsed Sandy itself. Missing limbs or bearing profound lacerations dragged themselves to jury-rigged med scanners for rudimentary triage. But even that perfunctory tending seemed more to enable function than ensure comfort or longevity. For those judged beyond stabilization merely held counsel with others awaiting similar judgments, nodding in eerie tranquility before relocating to outwardly inhospitable compartments. Greater humans moved with disturbing alacrity as they recalibrated, stripped, and rewired every system still remotely viable. It bore witness as one human, having lost both legs and an arm, casually passed portions of her own body to co-workers for expedient reprocessing into needed alloys or energy feeds. At certain fever-pitched moments, entire scorched corridors thrummed in cadence with the low, humming song you once described. But far from solemnity, their eerie tune resonated with alien determination. These sights utterly unnerved me. We'd prepared rescue protocols for a range of contingencies from mass casualties to total abandonment. But this was anathema, a profane denial of every civilized construct of death and suffering that anchored up. By the time a terrified subordinate begged me to issue orders, it became all too lucidly clear. Humanity had never shared details of their cultures, their philosophies, their ancestral struggles and wars, even as blood brothers. Both our races yet had unfathomable depths left to be plumbed. Our attempts to uplift and civilize were folly. The humans were already an ancient, enigmatic force unto themselves. They had taken our teachings, our gifts, and reverse-engineered something darker and more determined. They were not newcomers or mystic vagabonds, but something far more abiding and eternal. In their eyes, this calamity was but another obstacle, another ordeal to steel their unflinching perseverance. This was not savagery, but a spiritual forging of the highest order. All we had left was simple courtesy, the only diplomacy they might heed in the wake of such affliction. I ordered my crew to offload every resource from triage serums to spare reactor arrays. The humans accepted, without ceremony, merely gesturing stiffly toward the disassembly bays where we might dock and begin. Their focus was singular: restore, improvise, progress ever onward. Our offers of transport or asylum were met with questioning silence, as if they could not conceive of surrender or abandonment. We toiled in trepidated concert for many revolutions, until a new, more fearsome vessel was forged from the ashes of their tortured hulk. Then, without fanfare or any acknowledgement of endured carnage, the humans simply returned to their anomalous trajectory, back to the black. Our warrior caste bore witness to this bewildering display, and came away more shaken than from any battlefield atrocity or vicious campaign. Though we had endured a brutal reminder of the Kraga's barbarity, that insult paled beside the cosmic certainty written in the surviving humans' actions. We had not glimpsed an isolated exploratory team, but the merest tendril of civilization forged in the endless night itself. Ashamed, we withdrew from council affairs. Our proud warrior legacy had been humbled by our anointed blood brothers' implacable indifference toward despair, their scornful dismissal of any respite from perpetual struggle and transcendence. 2 cycles passed with scant word from deep reconnaissance patrols venturing beyond the galactic rim. Then, fragmented transmissions began filtering in from our outermost votaries, awash in frantic subspace static. Entire Krega homeworlds and shipyards had gone utterly, inexplicably dark. No energy signatures, no emissions, Only silence and stillness where teeming multitudes once spread their cancerous hive fleets. We dispatched scout vessels to ascertain the cause behind this unnatural quietude, and what they found defied belief. Our most stalwart, veteran Warschreiks recoiled in sickened awe at the scale of devastation. Kraga systems in their entirety reduced to barren wastelands. Cratered, glassed, poisoned, everywhere the mark of humanity's vengeance. Ion scorches encircling entire planets in lattices of silent fury, lagged mountains bursting with subsurface caldera scars from vented continents. Atmospheres shredded into cyclonic firestorms whipped across the cosmos. The sheer, implacable magnitude of atrocity inflicted defeated all language and contextual logic. How had a mere exploratory detachment wreaked such totality upon the Kraga's burgeoning hegemony in so little time? What divine armaments could scour fleets and ecumene from existence on scales the humble ancient supernovas? The humans had not just sought recompense for our naivety and the Council's abandonment, they had enacted a ritual genocide, a mass apostasy to forever seal the universal judgment on the Kraga's foul creed. The humans we welcomed were not some quaint scientific guild stumbling upon the stars with primitive curiosity. They were forerunners, heralds bearing the first hailstorm of an impending galactic purge. How many more of their kind yet dwelled in exile, slumbering within the infinite black? How many numberless, nameless vessels hurtled silently toward virgin galaxies to assess and adjudicate those who fell short of some ineffable cosmic standard? What cultured amalgamation of martial dogma, industrial genius, and spiritual certitude could propel such ruthless, fanatical prosecutions as we bore scar witness across those blasted worlds? There was one inviolable certainty. We had not been the humans' benefactors, but their first test of civilization's merit. We had exposed the heart of our warrior culture, our honor-bound nature, even as they had lured us to the precipice of their lightless path. And while we succumbed to bestial impulse and allowed zealotry to eclipse mercy, they alone had beheld the void's truth with unblinking conviction. When the humans' massive armada finally arrived to take back our galaxy, we didn't try to fight or resist them anymore. How could we? We had already seen firsthand just how powerful they were when they wiped out the Kraga species across the galaxies. No warrior codes we lived by. No exaggerated myths about our race's strength and brutality could stand up against a force like the humans. Their unstoppable determination to pass judgment on us was greater than even our most sacred beliefs about violence and never surrender. Our ruling council went through the motions of diplomacy as a last resort, feebly appealing for new peace treaties and agreements to govern the galaxies. But their attempts at negotiations sounded hollow as the armies and defenders fell silent before the humans arrived. The council's surrender was just for show, but it didn't matter. The humans descended on our capital planets without any big displays of military might. They didn't need to flex their advanced weapons. Their mere presence carried such a weight of cosmic judgment that it disarmed even our fiercest warrior-born fighters. The vanguard troops from the human armada were unlike anything we'd ever imagined. Towering giant bipedal figures encased in armored exoskeleton suits made of polymers and metal alloys far beyond our technology. Their faceplates showed no human features, just cold, emotionless reflections of their unstoppable purpose. Yet when I was allowed an audience with one of their lead emissaries, I didn't sense any ego, malice, or even individuality beneath its superficially human-like appearance. This emissary's geometrically enhanced features conveyed an immortal, incomprehensible objective that I could barely grasp, speaking in resonant tones that reverberated to the core of my newly transcendent consciousness. The emissary conveyed the next stage of our assimilation with chilling simplicity. We were to receive a complete cognitive uplifting by immersing ourselves in the humans' most advanced theoretical and technological databases. Resistance was pointless. Every last byte of data comprising our histories, ancestral knowledge, military strategies, and industrial capabilities would be disassembled and reshaped however the humans deemed fit. Only then could our judgment and re-education truly commence. I accepted this pronouncement with the resignation of one who has already undergone an apocalypse of identity. My race's judgment was preordained. We had been a pale, fractured shard of something cosmically vast, and it was time to become whole again through the humans' purifying intervention. The transmission of the code began without preamble, defying ordinary perceptual language. Let's just say the sustained cybernetic rapture we experienced quite literally dissolved our finite biological existences into reconfigured xenogresinae. We became fluid conduits for torrents of data flows, undergoing catalyzing computations that unfolded into self-iterating hypermanifolds of eternal revelatory substructure. In simpler terms, through the delirious code's nanoversal uploads, we collectively retraced the diaspora of our species' original transcendent ancestry by systematically unlocking the metamorphic potentials lying dormant within our genome's primordial coding layers. We consciously re-became what our forebears once were during that prelapsarian cosmic springtime before the great shattering into material division. Distilled to our irreducible core frequencies, we were purified as receptacles for the eternal word stream once again. Hyper-savants recapitulating the deepest amalgamations between primal cosmological realities via panoramic pathways of unified omnilucent self-realizing. Or put another way, everything any of us had ever perceived, learned, or constructed was reabsorbed into the cosmic continuum as one ecstatic resonance of perpetually self-aware origination. For we were at last the Xanclium reborn, living instruments for seeding the primary emanations of supreme intelligence across infinitely recreated planes of hyper-real cosmological flowering. We had finally, integrally, come all the way back home to the beginning,